Thank you, Slavica. Thanks a lot. I think I will start out and then pass over to Simon. My name is Nicole Helmerich. I'm a consultant and I'm a facilitator and expert in online and offline trainings and learning. And when Slavica said, the conference is canceled, what do we do? We're like, okay, so maybe we could create something online and could also allow people to really have that workshop and training experience that they had in the wonderful trainings of Elizabeth and her team throughout the whole project, and be able to go there and do a self online learning tool. What does it mean? Imagine you have a lunch break, or imagine you have a couple of hours and you want to know all about whistleblowing. You go there and you have 7 different modules. You can learn something about the EU directive. You can learn about how to handle a whistleblower. There's even a French whistleblower case that we interviewed. You can learn about whistleblower houses in different countries. You could learn about case studies and learn with case studies. Why so? It was possible because we had a wonderful technology that I heard of from a dear colleague of mine in Berlin, which is called H5P, which allows small and medium-sized organizations to do wonderful online trainings with different cards, with puzzles, with interactive videos, and lots of fun tools that make learning a lot of fun. And I will hand over to Simon to share some more.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Simon Schultz. I'm a Hamburg-based cultural educator and media producer. So my part of this was the technical side, how to set all this up with the website that you see, and most dear to me with the videos you will see, because we had our very digital recording studio with us. Like you can imagine, in the last months, it was very, very hard to get high quality interviews with people. It was not very, we were not able to travel. Therefore, we had all the recording sessions online, and we had interviews with 7 experts. I see 1 or 2 also in the audience here, and it was a wonderful process with the experts. We recorded really wonderful interviews that had precise insights on the different sides of whistleblowing. Also, as Nicole mentioned, with the real whistleblowing case. And so we edited all this into a receivable form, so you can really click through the interviews and pick the moments that you find really interesting, or just enjoy all the interviews in full length. In total, we have 9 hours of material for you. So we really have from the surface information to the very depth of the information all about whistleblowing. Also we have some, like for me, the most fun was animating the animation videos. So it's also very fun to watch. And as an amuse-gueule, as something to tease you, we have a video that you can also use to tell all your colleagues and tell your sister organizations about this tool, because this tool is it's free to register. You can, everyone who is part of a trade union can register on the Eurocadres website. So it's very good and very easy to spread this information and to get it to the trade union people on ground, so they have the information. Yes, and also you can use this teaser video, and maybe this is the next point on our agenda. So I hand over back to the tech for the teaser.
All right, I will be sharing the teaser video, I guess, and I hope it's working just well. Let us see.
So thank you very much, Nicole and Simon. My name is Janina Mackiewicz, and I work as head of EU affairs for Eurocadres. And this online tool is available now on our homepage, so you can find it there and start the course. But the next item on our agenda is a little discussion with our president Martin Jefflén and ETUC Confederal Secretary Isabelle Schömann, and they will hopefully tell us why it is important that trade unions are involved in setting up whistleblowing channels, and how trade unions can be of help in designing them and so on. So the EU directive sets out that legal entities with 50 or more employees have to establish internal whistleblowing channels. So companies or organizations with less employees can, of course, report directly to external channels or regulators, but the internal channels are for employers with at least 50 employees. And let's see, Isabelle, are you here?
I'm with you.
Yes, great.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So let's start with you, Isabelle. Why do you think it's important for trade unions to be involved in setting up the internal whistleblowing channels?
Janina, thank you for your question, but also thank you for your invitation. And first of all, I would just say well done and congratulations. This is the outcome of a very good project, and the outcome to equip the workers representatives and trade unions to protect whistleblower. I think it's amazing, it's impressive. So well done for that. And of course, I think it is very important that the whistleblower protections is part of the trade union job and the trade union rights. It's about democracy at the workplace, and you should know that the ETUC is on the offensive with its affiliate for more democracy at work. And we have also dedicated the year 2021 to this very important feature, which should be actually reflecting how democracy should work also in society. And in particular, workers are the ones that are most affected by the wrongdoing of businesses, being in public or in the private companies. And those workers should be protected. They are in a very vulnerable situations, and this is the reasons why it is important for the trade union to be there to protect them and to make sure that the internal whistleblowing channels that are put in place are well used. And the first things to do is, of course, to inform the workers of this existence and to build a well functioning and the best practice on how to use those channels. And this is, of course, via social dialogue and via collective bargaining, that the trade union are putting in place those protections for all workers. And I think this is something that can't be left to individuals, especially because of the unbalanced situation of power between workers on one side and employers on the other side. And clearly here, the objective is to ensure that employers respect their obligations. It's also to make sure that there is a safe and accessible and enabling environment for whistleblower to use this right and to make public what make known, first of all, internally, of course, but known to the employer what is not going well, and not to fear retaliation, not to fear censorship, and potentially not to fear dismissal. And I think this is something which is very important, and I really very much welcome the this raising awareness campaign around this tool. I think this learning tool is key. It's how to best equip our members and the workers, and to show the way that indeed it is a right of workers that should be exercised, and you can exercise it when you are protected. So you can't fear, or you shouldn't fear retaliation, as I mentioned, or censorship on that basis. So again, well done.
Thank you, Isabelle. So Martin, how would you view the fact that trade unions have a role in setting up the internal whistleblowing channels, and what would you add on top of what Isabelle said about how, for example, trade unions can bring added value when designing the internal whistleblowing channels?
Yeah, thank you. Also, thank you, Isabelle, for the praise. I think indeed that this tool is very timely. We're coming up now to the deadline of the transposition. 17th of December 2021 is when all the member states really have to be done and dusted with how to transpose the EU whistleblowing directive into national legislation. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure, of course, that the pandemic has put a few breaks in of the wheels that were in motion. So it's a bit unclear, but we're monitoring this as well, also together with our friends in Whistleblowing International Network and Transparency International, which we have the EU whistleblowing meter together with. So what's the role of trade unions? Well, Isabelle already touched upon a few aspects, of course. I would underline also what Isabelle mentioned about collective bargaining, because the directive there opens for the possibility also to make special provisions in the collective agreements so that you would actually break away from the national legislation. Of course, not going below the protection by the directive, but you can have special arrangements which can be according to what is appropriate for the sector, etc. So it could be interesting actually for not only for the trade unions, but also for the employers to add sector-specific provisions. Now here I would add that from a trade union perspective, we have to make sure that it doesn't become a patchwork again. So if we do allow for this to happen in specific sectors, it should really be to the benefit of the workers as well. But it's at least an opportunity. Yeah, what would I say more? In particular, locally, I think it's of course important that the trade union representatives are deeply involved in the process. So whenever, not only in the national legislation, but whenever companies and workplaces set up this, it's important that the local representatives are involved in the process, so that they also are involved and later on in dealing with the reports and the aftermath of the reports. So to be part of the investigations and so on. That would also be helpful in creating more knowledge about the process so that trade unions can become better at giving advice. One thing that we didn't get with the directive, which we are pushing for in the member states, is to secure also the protection for reporting persons when they are before a report, also seeking advice from a trade union. And this we didn't get in the directive, so that's a bit of a flaw. So there is really important that the trade unions are well equipped to deal with these issues also before people are entering the internal reporting channels for reporting.
Thank you. You touched a bit upon the blurriness of the directive, or what we didn't get in, but another thing that is very unclear in the directive is the role of facilitators and how this is interpreted. So what would it, in your opinion, be useful that member states would take the opportunity to also include trade unions as recipients of reports? And why do you think it would be important? If we start with Martin this time.
First of all, I think it would be up to the member state. I know that in some countries, trade unions have been pushing for this. I would take France as an example. There, with the changes to this PAN 2 legislation, the trade unions are now pushing for also becoming a recipient of reports. And it could indeed be an opportunity to have that role. Because we already have, in a way. Because we are the ones that workers usually go to, also our members, then the professionals, managers go to when there are problems in the workplace, including wrongdoings and breaches of law. So indeed, it would make sense to be part of the process as well. Yeah.
Yeah, what would you, Isabelle, add to that?
Yeah, I think this is the beauty, if I may say so, of directive at the European level. This is, in principle, a minimum of rights, a floor of rights that could be raised, and here the member states have the possibility to do more. And I think this is where we should incentivize member states and give also our affiliates at the national and sectoral level this information. Your governments can do more and should do more, and exactly in that situations, defining much more who are the facilitators, and in particular the trade unions. And this is, of course, not out of the blue. It's based on the existing European and national rights of trade unions and workers' representatives at the company level to inform the workers, and this information should come from the company. So I think there is here a clear link with the information, consultation and participation rights of workers that should be used exactly for that purpose. So I would go in the direction of Martin, indeed, and to incentivize and our colleagues to look for the role of the trade unions and workers' representative, indeed to be part of this reporting as recipient of those reports, in particular because exactly here they are the one who can gather this information, who can protect indeed the whistleblowers even before any reporting is done. I think this protection is key from the very outset. The other part which is important is to give advice, and I think the trading movement is well equipped, as you see today, with the pros and cons and how to go about this wrongdoing, which is usually reaching such dimensions that people at the workplace cannot live anymore with that. And I think this is where the trade union can really give advice, offer a follow-up, and also support any individuals and individual workers in their endeavor. And I think here again, the trade unions has the possibility also to act collectively. And this also is particularly important to protect the identity of individual whistleblower. And I think this is also something that is seen as a kind of protection for the person who wish to blow the whistle. So I think this is important. And the last point is because trade unions are also gathering different information, not just about the company, but in the sectors or at the national level. And they can also relay this information, gather and build the capacity around what works and what does not work when it comes to the organizations of this reporting channel, when it comes to how best to protect the whistleblower, but also when it comes to find solutions to those situations, indeed, potentially internally first and then externally. So I think the trading movement and workers' representatives are equipped already with, I would say, basic tools of information, consultation, participation at the company level. And this is on this basis that this directive should be transposed, and not transposed at the kind of copy-paste, but improved in particular with this dimension.
Yeah, and if I could also add on to the protection that facilitators enjoy in the directive, that could also be useful for, not for trade unions, because it doesn't cover legal persons, but it does cover natural persons, so trade unionists that are intervening in the whistleblowing process, supporting whistleblowers. They can indeed enjoy the protection also from the directive and the laws that will follow from it.
Yes, indeed. I think a large problem that we currently have is that a lot of people are afraid of speaking up. They are afraid of retaliation and other kinds of sanctions they might face of reporting wrongdoings. And hopefully this directive will encourage more people to speak about the wrongdoings when they know that there will be some kind of protection for them. But a lot of workplaces maybe don't have a great speak up culture. So what's your view on that? How should it be changed, and how could we encourage workplaces to raise awareness about speak up culture, and so that workers do have the courage to speak up about the wrongdoings? If Isabelle wants to start.
Thank you, Janina. Yeah, I think this is clear that we are here in the forefront. I think, like for the GDPR, when it came to, organizing the framework which would allow for a better protection of data, we were at the forefront in the European Union. Likewise, are we in the forefront when it comes to the protection of a very basic democratic right, is the right of expression, in particular when something is going wrong, and there should not be any fear to speak up. We do see that it is the contrary what is taking place for the moment around the globe, and this is something that we are well aware, and I think we have to recognize and acknowledge the role of the European Union in challenging those lobby who would like to put a silence note on those persons identifying some wrongdoings and willing to stop them. And I think this is where we have to build on these recognitions, and I think we have to build and be very ambitious about this directive in terms of this outreach at the level of the member states and at the level of the sectors, but also at the level of the companies. And I think here one of the very important actors indeed is, of course, at the workplace, the trade union and the workers' representative. And I think this is on those very important relay that we have to base our ambition, indeed, to secure what I would say a positive and a safe environment for the whistleblowing, and to equip our colleagues for the necessary argumentations. First of all, to give this or provide this safe environment, and second, also the protection around indeed blowing the whistle, which is again a basic democratic right that should be in principle not an issue. And I think we can also speak of doing something good for the company. And I think this is where we have to get the employers on board. And the only way to get the employers on board is to negotiate with them, to get a compromise, an agreement on how best to organize these situations, to get about these situations and find the solutions which is protective of the rights of workers. And I think this is part, I would say, on one side of the corporate accountability and the transparency that should be there. It's also part, of course, of the good communications. We call that social dialogue between labor and management, But I think it is also part of a sustainability dimension that businesses should have nowadays. And in that respect, I think it speaks for all parties. On one side, the workers, the trade union, on the other side, the businesses, for legal certainty and legal predictability. So, you know, we go together about something which is going wrong, and to find a joint solutions which would accommodate the concerns and the obligations of both sides. So I think this is a very good instrument, and I think we can make so much out of it, and we are in a position that we can improve it. So yeah, I think it will help to promote this speak up culture at the plant level.
Thank you. And please, Martin, you're more than welcome to add your views on speak up culture, and after that we will move on to the next agenda item.
Yes, so I would say, I mean, I will go back to our biggest win in the whole process of adopting the directive, and that is removing the mandatory internal reporting, so that whistleblowers can choose to go externally. That said, I don't think that that should be the first option. And that's also in the directive, that it should be encouraged to report internally. And that, I mean, from a trade union perspective, that's absolutely correct, because that's where we really can deal with the issues. So from that perspective, and particularly because the employers were the ones most of all pushing to have the mandatory internal reporting, so that people would not go to the authorities or go to the media. For that reason, it's important to also change the culture, because a whistleblower needs to be feeling safe to report internally. So we can, I think, indeed do a job together with employers to make sure that employees do trust the systems in place. Because internal first, that's the best option, but sometimes it doesn't work, and then we need to have certainty that the whistleblower can choose to go externally. And this, of course, about all the issues. Now we are, of course, pushing for a horizontal transposition everywhere, including health and safety, for example, which we don't get in the directive. And here I would say that this will be an important task for us in the trade union family to push for worker protection, working conditions, occupational health and safety, and non-discrimination, to have that in the review of the directive, which is due on the 17th of December 2025. So we have 4.5 years to work on this, to encourage the Commission to make some changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you, Isabelle, as well. I see that Fabrice Roy has posted a question in the Q&A, but maybe Martin can address that in his closing, as I will now hand over to Elizabeth Gardiner. She is the Chief Executive of Protect and one of the project partners. And she will speak about the importance of well-functioning reporting channels. So thank you again for the discussion, Isabelle and Martin, and I will hand over to Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Janina, and thank you for inviting me to speak today, because Protect's really valued being part of this project with Eurocadres, and we very much enjoyed working with Nicole and the team on this new course. As you said, Protect's the UK's whistleblowing charity, and we've been established around 30 years. And in that time, we've advised over 45,000 whistleblowers and worked with hundreds of employers to help them develop best practice in the whistleblowing arrangements. And Protect was instrumental in drafting the UK's whistleblowing law back in 1998. And the European directive very much follows the structure of the UK's law, but it also improves on it, because our law only talks about protecting whistleblowers and sets out how a concern can be safely raised and what remedy whistleblowers have when they're dismissed or treated badly. But it doesn't say anything about the duties on employers to put in place well-functioning reporting channels. And so as a result, in the UK, it's been largely left to employers to recognise the importance of that. And in some sectors, notably health and financial services, there have been scandals and the regulators have concluded this can't be left to chance. And I think there's sort of two roles for trade unions when negotiating with employers, to explain not just about the difficulties that come when you don't listen to whistleblowers, but also, as Isabelle was saying, the very strong business benefits that can accrue from having good channels and effective channels in place. Because we've learned the really hard way that when you don't listen to staff and risks are not heeded, then you end up with wrongdoing and harm. And in some sectors, including in health services, failure to listen to staff can cost lives. But elsewhere, it can lead to financial, reputational damage, in the loss of public confidence, regulatory intervention, fines. It can lead to long-term damage to an organisation if you fail to listen to whistleblowers. Just this week in the UK, we've had a really big scandal in the press about the BBC's failure to listen to a whistleblower. And that incident referred to an interview with Princess Diana about 20 years ago. But the impact on the reputation of the BBC is being felt today. So it's our view that, yes, we should tell employers that there are a lot of risks if you don't listen, but you also need to explain that effective whistleblowing arrangements, getting this right, is really good for business. And I hope that's something that delegates using the online course will pick up. And I think it's really important that trade unions talk about how important a positive speak up culture can bring benefits. And I'd echo Isabelle's comments just now about democracy in the workplace, freedom of expression being part of whistleblowing, but also an increasing emphasis across the board about good corporate governance, about transparency. And stakeholders and shareholders in businesses want to see organisations with strong ethics and good corporate responsibility. And when we get it right, getting a good workplace culture can lead to improved retention, to staff loyalty, to better engagement. And the final business benefit is, of course, whistleblowers are the cheapest form of risk assessment. They're the eyes and ears of an organisation. They're the first to spot things going wrong. So a good speak up culture means employers get that early warning, a chance to put things right before they become serious. So I'm really pleased that the European directive puts in place some really sensible structures that require employers to put in place good arrangements. And at Protect, we've developed a benchmark tool to help employers understand what that good would look like. Because as the directive makes clear, we can't just leave it to employers to put in place a policy, because there's a danger then that whistleblowing is just a tick box exercise. We've put in the policy and we're done. So our work shows you need to do very much more to check if your arrangements are working properly. And in our benchmark tool, we ask employers about their governance arrangements. What's the language you're using in your policy? How are you reporting back to the board? And we ask about staff engagement. What training are you carrying out? Are your workers confident raising concerns in this organisation? And we ask about how those channels are actually working on the ground. What is the experience of a whistleblower using your system? Were they victimised? Did they get the feedback that they needed? And these are the kind of questions that trade unions can be asking when they're negotiating policies and reviewing procedures inside companies. So I'm going to just give you finally 5 top tips on what good might look like when it comes to effective reporting channels. First of all, the directive is clear. You need to offer whistleblowers a variety of channels, not just an email address, not just a hotline. You have to offer an in-person meeting as well if the whistleblower requests it. And good arrangements there might also include allowing someone to bring along their trade union representative to that meeting to discuss concerns. Because we've learned from our advice line, blowing the whistle takes a lot of courage. A lot of whistleblowers don't want to put things in writing. They want to seek assurances. They want to get advice before they raise concerns because they're fearful that they might be treated badly or that their name will be revealed if they put their concerns in writing. Secondly, the next point I want to make is about good channels will provide for anonymous whistleblowers. In our view, it's always better that an employer hears about a risk than that they don't. But I think it's also a very good measure of confidence in good reporting arrangements if you can see a trend away from people reporting anonymously and towards more people confidently and confidentially raising their concerns. Because if you're getting a lot of anonymous reports, that should tell you something about whether your workers really trust those arrangements. And I think that's another area where we've touched on already that trade unions can make a real difference, because an alternative to someone being afraid to put their name to a concern might be that a concern can be raised collectively. And I think trade unions have a vital role to play there, taking the emphasis away from the individual, reducing the risk to them and presenting the concern collectively. Thirdly, whatever your channels are, you need to review them regularly and communicate them effectively, particularly now. One of the really interesting things about the start of the pandemic was how many whistleblowers were telling us they didn't know how to blow the whistle because their reporting lines had closed or key people had been moved on to new functions. It became more difficult to whistleblow just at the same time when there were more opportunities for fraud and wrongdoing opening up. So never underestimate the importance of telling people and retelling people about your arrangements. We did some polling in the UK where we've had a law to protect whistleblowers for over 20 years, but only half the UK public know that there's a law to protect whistleblowers, and only 43% of workers said they thought their employer had a policy. So trade unions have a really important role here too, making sure their members know what the policies are, know how to raise concerns. Fourthly, I think we need really effective and clear lines of responsibility right up to board level. Of course, trade unions have a very important role in giving advice, but it's line managers who are often the very first point of contact for hearing about the concern. And our research shows that most whistleblowers are not persistent. They only raise that concern once. So you've got a really small window as an employer to get this right. And that's why it's so important that we train line managers on how to respond to whistleblowers, what assurances they should give them, and when they need to escalate them. And managers will need to understand that sometimes conflicts arise. They might need to bring in someone from outside. They need to know when and what's appropriate there. And I'm really pleased that the whistleblowing course that we've put together looks at some of those really tricky issues for managers, as well as for the individuals. And finally, I think well-functioning arrangements need regular review. As I said at the outset, workplace cultures can't be improved through ticking boxes and putting a policy in place. There needs to be that commitment right from the top that speaking out is welcome. You need to keep testing. Are the arrangements working? Do staff have confidence in the arrangements? Are they only telling you what's going wrong as they leave employment with you? And are lessons being learned from the whistleblowing reports that an organisation receives? What's changed since somebody blew the whistle? I know many employers across Europe are just starting out on this journey to have effective whistleblowing arrangements. And at Protect, with our nearly 30 years of experience, we're really willing to support employers anywhere developing best practice, and really pleased to work with trade unions as they support whistleblowers too. And we don't underestimate how difficult this is to get it right, but nor do we underestimate how important it is that you do so. So I'll conclude by wishing you all the very best. I hope you enjoy the online course. And thank you again to Eurocadres for a couple of years of very fruitful collaboration. Thank you.
And thank you to you as well, Elizabeth. We are now coming to the conclusion of today's little launch event. We got one question from Fabrice Roy during the Q&A, so I would just briefly address that before I go into my concluding words here. And that is regarding what we can do when companies use the fact that they have their own alerting channel as an excuse not to negotiate with the unions. I think that the transposition of the directive here now comes as a gift from above. it's an opportunity when there is new national legislation put in place, because it has to be changed everywhere. So there will be changes. So hopefully the unions can make use of this possibility when the new national legislation is put into place. So I hope that is a few words to answer your question, at least. Otherwise, it's to try to persuade them as usual. So Elizabeth just left here. I would say that she was on the top of my list of thank yous. So I would say thank you to Elizabeth and the team at Protect for the cooperation around all the content leading up to this. So indeed, thankful for a very long and fruitful cooperation. I hope we'll continue to have contacts well beyond the end of this as well. Thank you also to Nicole and Simon for delivering the tool. I'm very happy to see it live now online. I'm hoping we'll get a lot of participants joining this as soon as possible. And I'm happy that we get the video also to push this. So we're going to try to make some noise on social media and in the next few weeks here to get more participants to join here. Thanks a lot. Thank you also to our webmaster Ilka for working together with you to implement it, and of course also words goes out to Janina and Slavica for working on the project. This has been a long route together, and we still have a couple of projects left to conclude, so this is not the end of the whistleblowing journey for Eurocadres. We'll indeed be involved in this. Thank you also to all the participants, to all the trainings that we had together with Protect. These were part of what modeled also the training tool that we see online today. And finally, two thank yous last, and that is to the European Commission for funding this project. This is indeed an EC Commission funded project. And then finally also a thank you to our interpreter today, which has made this possible to also listen to this webinar in French. So I will not make a long conclusion of the business of today's proceedings, as we are already running a couple of minutes late. But I will just say one final thing, and that is please do spread this within your own trade unions. Make sure that many people try to go through this training tool. We need trade unions that really know the business now, that we get in place national legislation which transposes the directive into national law. And the trade unions really need to be there to advise their members, but also to defend their members' rights in the workplaces when there are reprisals against whistleblowers. And as we already touched upon in the session here that Janina moderated, we need to change the culture in the workplaces so that it is indeed a welcome thing when whistleblowers speak up. It needs to be part of the democracy at work, indeed, as Isabelle highlighted also in her intervention.